Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on the Rab, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can now listen to on the Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, August 13th, 2023. But a day or two ago, you got a box in the mail, Drew. Is that correct?
I got a box in the mail, a mysterious box from the woods. It just said the woods. And I said, oh my God, what is Jim sending me? And of course, my wife, who wants nothing in the house, said, oh my God, what is Jim sending you? And what it was a box, because a few episodes ago we had talked about Runaway Brain and the lack of merchandise. And Jim said, wait a minute. No, they made something fairly recently for Runaway Brain. It's not very good, but... And so you sent me a box of magazines, and what is the name of this magazine?
This is the Disney Sketches magazine, which was the quarterly newsletter that supported the old Walt Disney Collectors Society. Do you remember these, the statues?
No, I don't. And I was so shocked. I mean, to me, in my memory, in my post-COVID brain, 2009 is fairly recent, but when did this start, and what was the purpose of this group?
Well, again, it was during this time. I want to say it got underway 94, 93, 94. They had talented folks like Bruce Lau. And what they would do is they would create these sculptures, limited edition. I mean, some of them were as low as 500 pieces, 700 pieces. But they would recreate memorable moments from various Disney animated features. And it was one of these things where, well, as I was mentioning to you last night when you were like, what did you send me and why? This was one of those things where, kind of classic Disney. They made money. I mean, they had fan events. I mean, in fact, that's the thing of one of the reasons I sent it to Drew is these newsletters are full of, articles by Disney branders like Jim Fanning, and there's lots of great little tidbits. But again, they'd have signings, but the problem was Disney wanted money, and they were getting money. In the end, it's like, we're not getting enough money. And I want to say 2 and 3 years before it kind of blew itself out in 2007, 2008, Disney farmed out the creation of the figures and that sort of thing to E&Esco. And I mean, don't get me wrong, even the latter figures, some of them are really appealing. But how many people are sitting at home and it's like, I just, it would brighten up this room. A mad Madam Mim. It's just like, where can I get one of those? And it's like, ooh.
How many 3 Caballeros can I fit in this apartment?
Yeah. If you remember the old Disney store on Fifth Avenue, when you went up to the 3rd floor, the what they referred to as the attic space, there was off to the left these cabinets where they displayed the latest figures and, beautifully lit. And I mean, it was just sort of like, you'd look into the glass and go, I didn't know I wanted that, but I want that. But yeah, it's, God, we are 15 years out from this having been an active thing at Disney. But I was building a set of my own of the Disney sketches, and I wound up with multiples and duplicates, and it was one of the things that, whose house can I clutter up? So, Drew Taylor.
No, it's amazing. And you're right. It's amazing. People don't understand how easy and often you could work as a writer because there were so many more avenues to actually publish editorial content, including who would have thought a magazine for collectible figurines. I mean, it's just like We really were living in a golden era.
Well, and the other reason again, knowing you are working on your 90s Disney thing, there are and that's the lovely thing is that this is one of those magazines that's done in real time. So it's like, oh, by the way, we're getting a cruise line up out of the ground. And oh, by the way, we're going to build a second theme park next to Disneyland. And never mind that the Ollie Johnsons and the Frank Thomases of the world were still around. So, for example, you have moments where like a Bruce Lau sits down and talks with Frank and Ollie about Bambi, which just today, August 13th, 81st anniversary of it being released to theaters.
Wow. I love Bambi so much. When I was in my mother's stomach, she nicknamed me Thumper. So, that's my connection with Bambi. I was a kicker.
Wow.
But Jim, I wanted to show you something that I got on eBay recently. And I want to show it to you and tell me if you can see what it is. Do you know that logo?
Disney Development Company. Oh,
yes.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, a hat from... Well, there's some sweat stains.
Well,
inside.
Of course
so
there's some sweat.
It was a well-loved hat.
Wow.
But I am obsessed with the Disney Development Company, as you know. And, yeah, it's just amazing.
Now, that was Ken Wong's duchy, right?
Was it Ken Wong or Wing Chow?
Ooh, I think you're right. Wing Chow.
Yeah.
Because just recently was hearing stories about, the effect of we're in charge of the hotels and you're in charge of the theme parks and never the twain shall meet, except, of course, when we build a theme park over the entrance of a park.
Right. Well, it's just, it was also inspiring by, you and Len talking about some of these, the first DVC hotel and things like that, when it was like the hotels really did have personality. They really had a point of view, and you had people like Bob Stern and Michael Graves designing these things. I mean, it was really an amazing period, and now we have these completely anonymous towers, and it's just depressing. I mean, somebody said that the Grandestino looked like the inside of a mega church. And I said, you know what? That is true. I mean, say what you will about the Swan and Dolphin, but man, those are statement pieces.
Yeah, they are. They are. In fact, somebody was just posting. They were driving along the perimeter road by the Magic Kingdom and went by the ongoing construction of the DVC next to the Poly, and that's a great looking collection of wet cardboard boxes.
At one of the most beautiful, most intricately themed resorts. I mean, I think that the Poly kind of lost its mojo when those stupid cabanas were put up over the water and those beautiful views. And I remember seeing so many people getting married out there, and it's just like,
you're not wrong,
man.
Yeah,
chasing that dollar, Jim.
I know.
I
know. And trust me, if they can ever come up with a construction technique that prevents, the building from sinking down like Atlantis. That chunk of land where, what is it, the Venetia was supposed to be built, and then the Mediterranean. I mean, that parcel that I think you can actually see it when you hop on the monorail and begin the Magic Kingdom loop rather than the resort loop.
Didn't they used to refer to that parcel of land on the monorail spiel?
Well, that coming soon, and
yeah.
Come back.
It seems like every few years. I mean, about 5 or 6 years ago they were thinking about a Magic Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
Now, were you and Lynn saying you can't get from the Poly to the TTC anymore, or what? What's the story?
They were doing construction on a couple of the wings of the Grand Flow. And so the walkway, it was literally blocked off because of this construction. My understanding is that it has since they've completed the construction, you can still do the Death March over to the Magic Kingdom if you feel strongly about it. In fact, perhaps Mr. Test and I, when we're next in Florida, will attempt to finish the stroll. But
can you get from the Poly to the TTC still? Because that was always a big draw. Right? It was like that. It was so close.
Yep. You can still do that. It's just, if you finished at the Kingdom and you don't like how long the lines are for, say, the launches that are going to the Poly and the Grand Flow, you have the option of walking, around Seven Seas Lagoon and making your way through the flow and then, past the new villa and then finally, back to your hotel. But
I'm getting sweaty just thinking about this, Jim.
As you should. But I also want to remind you folks that this is an animation news podcast, which of course we have not touched on in the slightest, for the first 10 minutes of the show. So, and before we get to the news, I want to remind you folks that the news portion of Fine Tuning is brought to you by Touring Plans Travel. If you're headed to Walt Disney World, these are the folks you want to chat with. And not just because if you book a package with them, they'll toss in a free copy of touring plans. If you are, in fact, headed to Central Florida anytime soon, please check these folks out at touringplans.com/travel. Okay, to jump into it. Let's start with the obvious. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles seems to be doing well over its second weekend in theaters. In fact, what was kind of interesting is the stuff I was reading earlier this morning, Drew, suggested that one of the reasons that the last voyage of the Demeter, the most recent Universal, are we still calling them Dark Universe movies? Or
they're not the Dark Universe anymore. I would say they are just like classic monsters.
Okay. But they were actually saying that one of the reasons that this new classic monster movie underperformed at the box office because Mutant Mayhem had a far stronger hold in its second weekend than anybody expected. But speaking of strong holds at the box office, what do you make of the stories just over the past week about Elemental? At this point, it's 49.1 million in ticket sales domestic, which, remember, when this thing opened back in June and it only sold $29.6 million worth of tickets in North America, everybody basically immediately wrote this off. I don't know, there's a part of me that is very happy for Peter Sohn. It's like the entertainment press was so quick to write off this film and, another flop from Pixar. And I mean, did you see the interview, for example, with Jim Morris, president of Pixar, in Variety earlier this week?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I am so happy that this movie, got to 400 million. I don't think it's probably not going to make money, but it will certainly not be losing money now, which is, what every movie, the goal is. But, even, I was seeing photos of the new, the rethemed Pixar hotel in Disneyland, and they have an ember fireplace, it's her head,
No.
And it's oh wow, they're already kind of integrating these characters in a really lovely way. And yeah, the movie is super charming. If you haven't seen it, it's still in theaters. Go see it. It's on digital later this month. So if you want to wait and watch it in the comfort of your room, that is fine too. But yeah, I mean, I think it was very telling that they got Jim out in front of this to say listen, we're still around and we can take the hits. And it's
I'm so glad you said that, because I want to say it's Rebecca Rubin over at Variety that did this interview. And first of all, Jim went on record at saying at this point Elemental should do better than break even theatrically. And then he made a point of saying, and remember, we also have revenue coming in from streaming, the theme parks, and consumer products. So Elemental will certainly be a profitable movie for the Disney company. Though, as you pointed out, this is easy to say given what's going on overseas. I want to say, what is it, 276 million, which is, how we get to over 400. Though what was interesting is that Morris himself said, I think, we're going to make it to 450 million, maybe 460, he seemed wistful that 500 million worldwide would seem to be out of reach for Elemental. But then he talked about why Pixar movies are as expensive as they are. And again, it was one of these things, I'm sitting there reading this, and it's like, Drew is going to be so happy, because this is literally Jim Morris saying exactly what Drew has been saying the whole time, to the effect of, one of the ways you make these films for less money, and almost all of our competitors do this, is to do work offshore. It's only us and Disney Animation who make animated films in the United States anymore with all of the artists under one roof. We feel like having a colony of artists approach differentiates our film. So it was like, hey, cool. Drew's been saying that forever. So it's nice to have somebody else put that on record. Now, when you think about a Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem, which, by the way, both supposedly cost $70 million to make, or a Super Mario Brothers movie, which reportedly costs $100 million to make. Again, when you hear an Elemental cost $200, that gives you pause. But Jim goes on to explain, it's like our whole company exists to only make these movies. So when we say a budget, that means everything it takes to run the whole company. And sometimes the budgets that get reported for those animated films are physical production costs, but they don't include the salaries of the executives and things like that. And Pixar budgets include all of that. So, as he puts it, some accounting context gets lost. But that doesn't mean they're not expensive. And he also went on to cite that when it comes to Elemental, one of the reasons this film was especially expensive was because virtually every character in it is a walking visual effect. Wade's water, Ember's fire, Claude is dirt, grass, whatever.
Claude was the cheap one, I'm sure. He just had to be a little rock.
Well, there you go. But, and I know we've talked about Elio a couple episodes back and the challenges from a financial point of view with that film. I did want to share something, though, that Josh Gad told me off air. Josh was on his staff to co-host Disney Dish while Len was away on his Disney cruise. But he talked about what he'd been hearing about Elio. And basically, he said, I've been hearing this is a real return to form for Pixar. In fact, that what he's hearing is Elio is like Up or Inside Out quality, which I would argue Luca and Turning Red are at that point as well.
Absolutely. And Soul.
Yep. And in fact, Jim Morris, this interview in Variety, bears out this point as well, that they are continually hearing from Burbank about you need to lower costs. In fact, that Bob Iger just this past week during the earnings call actually told the investment community, we are working on bringing down our cost per title for both theatrical as well as the stuff we're doing for Disney Plus. So that's, again, I keep hearing this same drumbeat about Elio, that the story team has basically had to defend every single shot of the movie because, the concept of the movie is a Earth Kid gets snatched and is taken to an intergalactic version of the UN. And so it's like every single character in this thing is a different alien species, which means a different animation rig. For example, compared to Elemental, where you've got, 4 species that live in Elemental City? You've got dozens upon dozens, and never mind the fact that this is largely set out in deep space. So every so often there's a giant vista that you have to fill with stars and moons and planets. And you just feel for the poor bastards there because, again, they're trying to get this movie out the door at a time when, pressure's coming from Burbank, which in turn, the folks at Pixar are trying to be responsive. They're trying to be good corporate citizens. And this movie still has to be ready for a March 1st release date next year. So have you been hearing anything in regard to Elio? Or?
Yeah, I've been hearing that I think it's in the past 6 months has been going through the usual kind of Pixar speed bumps, but I think that, they've recorded all the dialogue they can before this strike. Yeah. So hopefully they're good to go in terms of that. Mm-hmm. We saw Spider-Verse 3 get bumped because they hadn't recorded any dialogue yet. Mm-hmm. I'm very hopeful. I also think that Elio will probably support a robust consumer products campaign, which Elemental did not. I think just because there were so few characters maybe in it. But so I think that can offset things. I was a little worried, I don't know how much about Iger's earnings call we're going to talk about, but him saying, that we've really got to double down on all the IP and all the brands and stuff. And it's just like, if there was ever an opportunity to kind of like rebuild the company with smaller movies and bigger ideas within those movies, now would be the chance. But it just seems like they're going to just keep leaning on what do we have in the vault? What do we got? Let's trot out whatever, another Lion King movie. It's like, ay vey. But yeah, we all know that before Haunted Mansion was anything, it was just some idea that a bunch of guys had in a room. Like, we have to, the company really needs to get back to that. And I think that they'll attract better talent when they do. Almost the Touchstone kind of model. Not to always bring it back to the 80s and 90s.
No. I mean, that was what was fascinating about the early Touchstone years. I mean, there was a little tight financial box. And, the joke was Disney would lurk outside of the exit door for the Betty Ford Center. And, whatever celebrity had just finished, detoxing, they would grab for a bargain price. And you look at how often they used Bette Midler or Robin Williams or, in very early on there, to great effect, by the way. But those films were ridiculously tightly budgeted and had really aggressive schedules. And they made money hand over fist. And at the same time, think about how many of those were dialogue-driven comedies. Or, these days it's, the conversation still is, well, how will this play in China? Too much dialogue. I need something with explosions. So,
but if you're telling me that if you had put Prey out in the theaters, you're telling me that wouldn't have made money, and that is a modestly budgeted period sci-fi thriller, and it's so good, and it would have made a ton of money.
Well, again, so interesting. We were just talking about The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And, you put those two projects side by side. And again, it's one of those things where if you strip both those projects down to their elevator pitch, they both sound, like really fun. It's like, ooh, I want to see that movie. But Prey has such brilliant execution where you were just describing how you wanted to put Nova front and center to explain, it's like, this Demeter is the dog of the week, I mean, it just something when you look at Prey and how confident it is, but at the same time, what a smart reinvention it is of the whole Predator franchise. And it's like, ooh, I want to see another one of those.
Yeah. When can we get it, please?
Yeah, but
it's just so smart and so well done. And I encourage any of our listeners who are Emmy voters, please.
If you
haven't watched it, watch it.
Give that some love. And we'd love to revisit that world. And speaking of revisiting thing, again, we start off at the top saying how happy Drew and I are for Peter Somm about how the story that people are telling about Elemental has turned around. And if you follow Peter on social media, and by the way, you can do this if you go to X, Twitter, or whatever you're calling it. That's PETSOWN. Peter is now enjoying what's going on with Elemental. I mean, he's sharing images of people who are cosplaying as Wade and Ember or fan art. In fact, just this morning, he put up, somebody has this amazing tattoo of a sad Wade. And and Peter posted, I may be biased, but may I say that is the greatest tattoo in history.
That's pretty fun. I just looked at that. That is good.
Yeah, so it's just again,
really, really
just
good.
So I'm so happy for Peter, who has put in his time up in Emeryville, and the fact that this is now. I mean, Jim Morris himself is saying we're going to make money on this, and it's a success, and so. Okay, time for the next Peter Somm movie, which, if what's coming in from Disney is any indication, will have a budget of about $5. So, folks, we have spent an awful lot of time on the first half of today's show talking about Disney and Pixar. And when we get back, we will change the topic. In fact, we'll be talking about a number of things you should be doing this summer before Labor Day gets here that relates to animation.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Hey, the vibes are slipping. I think it's time to bring out the Velveeta shells and cheese. The holidays are a time to go all in on indulgence. Headline your meals with the rich, creamy meltiness of Velveeta shells and cheese and satisfy your holiday cravings like no other. Bring that main course energy to your side dish. Celebrate extra with Velveeta these holidays.
I want to remind you folks that Drew and I are recording this week's Fine Tuning on Sunday, August 13th. We are just 3 weeks out from Labor Day 2023, which happens on Monday, September 4th. And now, Drew, there's a lot of cool stuff to do in LA. And in fact, you and Katie are doing something cool tonight, right? The Tron Legacy screening?
Yeah, they've been doing a 3D film retrospective at the Academy Museum, which next time you're out, Jim, we need to go. I've never even gone to the museum. I've only gone to screenings, so we have to go next time you're out.
I know.
We got to see Bruce and, walk around. But so they're doing a 3D exhibition of Tron Legacy, which is wonderful, has one of the best uses of 3D ever. So I'm very excited to go visit my friends on the grid. I would not be surprised if the strikes are being used as context to cancel the third movie. But that's just my conspiracy theory. But yeah.
Because we had 5 weeks ago at least preliminary announcements about casting and that sort of thing. Right?
Yeah. A lot of, I think Evan Peters and a couple other people. But yeah, we'll see. Okay. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, again, that's tonight. And again, sorry, folks, you're hearing this on Tuesday, August 15th. You missed it. But on the other hand, if you're looking for something interesting to do in LA, next Sunday, August 20th, Becky Klein, the director of the Walt Disney Archive, will be at Walt's Barn, which is at 5202 Zoo Drive in Griffith Park. Drew, have you ever been to Walt's Barn?
I have. Actually, the last time I was there, I think Bob Gurr was there signing copies of his book. I mean, this was years and years ago, but it's a really, really fun, cute thing that happens the third Sunday of every month at Griffith Park over in the kind of travel town section.
Yep.
There's one of Walt's train cars is there. You can go in. There's a little diorama. You can walk around. There's ponies or something, And it's just a lovely way to spend a Sunday morning for, an hour or two, and really rich history. And that whole area is so fun.
Oh, no, totally. I do love that aspect of LA. But Drew's not wrong. This, again, coming up August 20th is the third Sunday of the month. And just as you mentioned with the Bob Gurr signing, Becky Klein is going to be there with author Paula Sigmund Lowry, and the two of them are going to be signing copies of The Story of Disney, 100 Years of Wonder, which, by the way, I mean, again, you can order this from Shop Disney, you can order this from Amazon. I do want to point out that the Barnes & Noble version has extra content. So, if you're a completist, you might want to be going for that
This will be the real story of Walt Disney, the story of him, putting cigarettes out on people's arms and stuff like that. You'll get all the good dirt in this one. That didn't happen.
Another Scotch Miss Hazel. It's like, all right.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Disney 100, the Disney 100, the exhibition, which opened at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia back on February 18th, is shutting its doors on August 27th. A stateside version of this is next reportedly headed to Chicago, though I'll be damned if I can find a date or a venue. And then after that, it's supposed to be headed to Kansas City. Since I can't find any info about when it's going to be in Chicago or when it's going to be in Kansas City, Nancy and I are actually driving down to Philly this coming weekend to check out the exhibit. And then after that, we're going to head over to Reading's Terminal Market to get a cheesesteak. And I have a question for our Philadelphia listeners. Ever since Rick's original Philly steak closed at the Terminal Market back in October 2008, I don't know where to go for a real Philly cheesesteak.
Well, there's those two that are like next door to each other that like compete with each other.
Oh, I did not know this.
I'll get you the information. But
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
There's also, Jim, you'll never believe it, a tiki bar in Philadelphia that is actually very fun that I went to the last time I was there. So I will get you that information.
Oh, don't do this to me. I'm supposed to be only in Philly for a day. In fact, the very next day we're driving up to Dorney Park. Again, the Disney Unpacked thing that Lennon, Jim Schul, and I are doing. At one point, we're going to be doing a show about Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, and I need to get images and video of. They have one of the oldest rides in that park is one of the original whips.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, well, it's there in all of its spine-mangling glory.
I love it.
So I'm under orders to get some video of that as well. But yeah, no, I can't linger in Philly. I was going to grab a cheesecake, get in the car, and drive up to Dorney Park. But now you're telling me about a tiki bar. Also, we were talking about things closing on August 27th. The Laika Life in Stop Motion exhibit that at the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, New York, will be shutting down again on that same day, August 27th. Now, I want to be clear here. We don't confuse the exhibit that's in Queens with the one that opened, at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle back in March of this year. Hidden Worlds. The films of Laika, that's supposed to run in Seattle through the summer of 2024. And I really, really, really want to get to see that one because don't they supposedly have, concept art and maybe a few rigs from Wildwood, their next movie on display there?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. That makes me want to go even more. Well, I mean, I already did. But
okay,
yeah, that sounds great.
Okay,
yeah, that was the one that I heard was really special.
Okay,
the one, yeah, and I think they have a rig where you can actually do stop motion animation and sort of see your character move, and yeah, we love Laika.
We do. All right, now let's talk about something I haven't quite made my mind up about yet because I've only seen 30 seconds of this, but. Playdate with Winnie the Pooh. Now, we've already established on the show, because you went to Annecy this year, but you were the busiest man on the planet. So they showcased Playdate with Winnie the Pooh there. Did you get to see any of this while you were in France?
I missed the TVA presentation, so I did not get to see it.
Okay. Now, kind of lay this out. This is something that is aimed at a very specific audience. This is aimed at preschoolers. And in fact, it's actually a two-part project because there's the Playdate with Winnie the Pooh, which is the series of shorts, but it will also be supported by me and Winnie the Pooh, which is a vlog-style set of shorts aimed at preschoolers. And this all debuts this coming Friday, March 18th on Disney Junior, Disney Junior On Demand, and Disney Now. Look, I know from what I've read online already that there are Disney fans who are losing their minds because Winnie the Pooh and Tigger are not being voiced by the great Jim Cummings. He normally does Pooh's voice for virtually everything that Disney does with this character. But, again, the conceit is this is a young Pooh. Here's the bullet point for the show. It's like a young Pooh Bear who enjoys play dates with his friends. And set in the exciting outdoors of the 100-Acre Woods, these musical shorts emphasize collaborative play and the joy of spending time with others. And again, Drew, you've only seen the 30 seconds that they pushed out there. Do we have thoughts?
Well, I'm just still very brokenhearted about the Cartoon Saloon Winnie the Pooh project not going forward. So, I mean, these are fine. To me, there's just very little interest for a man of my advanced age. But I think the designs look good. I think it's a cute aesthetic. But yeah, they seem to be chasing that kind of like almost bluey demographic.
There we go. Go. Okay. And the cradle to grave, business plan where it's like, what fascinates me is kids are introduced to Pooh at a fairly young age, but the whole notion of, no, we need preschool Pooh. In fact, wasn't that the point of the show from the mid to late 2000s, My Friends, Tigger and Pooh, the first CG Winnie the Pooh thing? Do you remember that, Darby and her dog?
I think that children need to be scared witless by human beings in giant puppet suits, like I was. That was really. This is why I keep a knife under my pillow when I sleep, because God forbid those monstrosities come through the door. But if anyone ever, what was that called, Jim?
Well, no, see, you're confusing Welcome to Pooh Corner.
Yes.
From the launch of the Disney Channel.
Yes.
And then there was the Book of Pooh, and that was done with that Japanese puppetry technique. And
that one was much gentler than I think what would have been. Yes.
Whereas Darby and her little dog friend and Tigger and Pooh would regularly dress up as superheroes to protect the 100-Acre Wood.
Yes, that's right.
This is Disney. They continually look for ways to get Pooh out there. And again, what Drew just said is true. I mean, the designs are clever, and I can see this, in a very much in a Bluey sort of way. So it'll be interesting to see how folks react to this.
And getting Pooh out there, Jim, was also a problem that I had when I got back from Europe. After that long flight. So it cannot be just stay.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Tip your waitresses. Okay, just sort of like, oh, God.
Try the veal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally changing the subject here. But again, for an incredibly good cause. Have you heard about this thing they're doing at the Give the Kids the World Village in Central Florida? The night with Linda Larkin and Jonathan Freeman?
No, that sounds great.
And Drew is not wrong. I mean, Linda Larkin, the speaking voice of Princess Jasmine in the hand-drawn version of Aladdin, released at theaters November 1992, and the great Jonathan Freeman, who has been the voice of Jafar, or more to the point, the persona of Jafar. I mean, 6 years on Broadway in the musical version of Aladdin. And having had the opportunity to interview both of these people, they are wonderful, wonderful storytellers. And again, it's an evening, you buy admission to this thing. First of all, you get to go into the Give the Kids the World Village, which 99% of the time is closed off to the rest of the planet. It's just for the families of the children who are there for their special trips to the various Central Florida attractions. So you get to go there. You get to see the amazing architecture and, the feature. But at the same time, you get to hear Linda Larkin and Jonathan Freeman tell stories about, the various projects they've worked on, their time at Disney. And then afterwards, depending on, which package you buy here, there'll be a meet and greet opportunity, a photo. But trust me, if I were down in Florida on August 26th, this would be where I'd be.
Do I need to send, I'm friendly with Scott, we need to send an email and get him down there too? I mean, he and Linda too still have such great chemistry. Anytime they show up at D23 together or whatever, I feel like I'm going to have to send him an email after this call, Jim, and we have to get him down.
That would be cool to get Scott and Linda again together. Holy cow, that's a great idea.
Yeah, but you're right. They're all lovely people, and I'm sure they will regale everyone with their finest anecdotes and memories from production.
But again, if you want more information, head on over to the Give Kids the World website, and you can find out about this on-site event. Also, as we begin to close out this week's show, just want to remind you folks, the writers and actors strike is still going on. Did you see this thing that Spencer Graham, who voices Morty's sister on Rick and Morty, what she shared through social media this past week about when she worked on the first season, worked on Rick and Morty, she was being paid so little, she didn't make enough to qualify for the SAG-AFTRA health insurance during the first year of her child's life.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And Alan Tudyk, got on social media right after Spencer posted this, and Alan put out there that, look, if you voiced every episode in a Rick and Morty season, a performer would be roughly paid $15,000 total. And what's interesting is the producers have been very successful over the years in keeping pay very low for voiceover actors. Mind you, The Simpsons and Family Guy are sort of outliers to that, but the rest of the industry, not so well paid. And speaking of voice actors, wanted to close out this week's show, Drew and I offering our heartfelt condolences to the friends and family of Johnny Hardwick, who was the voice of Dale Gribble on King of the Hill. He just passed away this past week at the age of 64, and we don't have a whole lot of information about what went on here, but the folks at 20th Television Animation of Hulu, which, by the way, it was back in January of this year, right? They announced the revival of King of the Hill.
Yeah, that's imminent as far as I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just put out that, look, Johnny Hardwick was an incredibly beloved member of the King of the Hill family, whose tremendous talent, brilliant humor, and friendship will be deeply missed by all who were fortunate enough to work with him over the past 25 years. And that's the thing. He was, he wasn't just, the voice of Dale and all his amazing conspiracy theories. He was also a writer on the show and a story editor, and over time became a producer. So kind of a tough break to lose him just as they're getting the revival up out of the ground. And so, again, Drew and I offer our heartfelt condolences there. And beyond that, Drew, so what is going on over on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast this week?
I believe this week. Well, now I don't want to say because we haven't gotten the episode approved yet, Jim. These are the new hurdles that face a man within the company. But I can say broadly, in the next few weeks, we've got great interviews with Lorne Balfe, the composer of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, who also did Fallout. Really interesting stuff there, as well as we've got Rebecca Ferguson. We've got... Who else do we have? We have a ton of people. And, obviously all recorded before the strike began. Yep. But, the strike does offer us an opportunity, Jim, which is to dig deep into the below-the-line people that we love to talk to so much. And,
what I love about what you and Charles do is that you take those opportunities with folks who worked on the Mission Impossible movies and then dig down into the other films they've worked on and the crazy stories you get them to share. It's so much fun.
Hopefully we haven't had an opportunity to bring up Color of Night in a while, but hopefully that will happen again soon, because a lot of Color of Night crossover, Jim. We love to hear stories about. If you want a really obscure Disney movie from the 90s, it's a absolutely insane erotic thriller with Bruce Willis and the lovely, and I don't know what happened to her, Jane March. I don't know where she was in that Tarzan movie too. Do you remember that? Yeah,
she was. Yeah, but again, face it, when you're thinking erotic thrillers, the name Disney immediately comes to mind.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay. Speaking of Disney, of course, we have here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, we have the Disney Dish I do with Len Testa. We have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams. Also has his own Patreon project, 32nd Street, which explores the world of advertising. And in fact, Brian Gahn and I later today will be recording a brand new Looking at Lucasfilm, where we'll actually circle back on a topic that Drew and I chatted on just this last show, where we lost Paul Rubens. We're going to take a closer look at him and his association with Star Tours and Star Wars Rebels and the like. Let's see. Beyond that, social media. So we're still doing the X, we're still doing the Twitter, but also Mammoth? Mastodon?
No, not Mammoth.
Okay.
Blue Sky and Threads, although I haven't really posted on either of those. You know, the whole disintegration of Twitter has really bummed me out.
I know.
On social media, but yeah, I don't know. Still plugging away.
Social media-wise, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over at Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. Finally, folks, if you could do Drew and I a favor, if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, well, not just the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, but also Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. That would be a big help. And I guess that's going to do it for now. So, again, I want to hear all about what it was like to go see Tron Legacy at the Academy tonight. You have seen movies there before, right? Or
in fact, I was just there for the Elemental world premiere a few weeks ago.
Damn it!
Yeah, it's an amazing theater, the big Globe Theater. Mm-hmm. So next time you come out, Jim,
okay, we'll do it.
Let's take a look and see what they're playing, and maybe there'll be something fun that we can go.
All right,
stop by.
Let's do it. Let's do it. But till then, folks, thanks for listening, and we will be back soon.